Okay, next I'd like to introduce our next speaker. So Dr. Lin Zhao. Dr. Lin Zhao is currently the Texas Tech Vice President for Information Technology and Chief Information Officer. He has over 25 years of distinguished leadership experience spanning some of the world's largest blue chip companies and higher education institutions. Dr. Zhao holds a PhD in physics from the University of Glasgow with extensive knowledge in quantum computing, artificial intelligence, blockchain, cloud computing, and technology standards. Before joining Texas Tech University, Dr. Zhao served as Senior Vice President and Chief Information Officer at the New School in New York City, where he spearheaded the institution's quantum initiative, launched the first quantum design jam and quantum exhibition, and founded the university's Innovation Center. So, Dr. Zhao.
Thank you. So first of all, I want to tell you one of my bad habits. Usually when I talk, I do not hide behind. I usually actually stand in front of it. And I guess we are here to host the first Texas Quantum Summit resonate with that metaphor, because we are here because we want to stand in front of the quantum wave. First of all, I also want to thank the program committee. Olga, really brilliant job pulling us all together. And also, I also want to thank Texas A&M for hosting us, providing such a great facility, and allow us to attend this wonderful conference for free. For Texas Tech, we are located in Lubbock, West Texas. We consist of 13 colleges, more than 42,000 students, and our research expenditure is about $300 million, and we are among the top 2% of 20,000 universities worldwide. And we made close to $10 billion of economic impact, including workforce. So I joined Texas Tech not too long ago, and I'm still learning. But what really impressed me is that in Texas Tech, obviously, we assembled a large representation. Some of you has already seen our speeches, our posters, but we are taking a quantum journey already. Lots of good progress, as you can already see. But also, we're also working on the AI journey as well. And what really going behind of those two emerging technology, our vision is that they are together. Okay? To us, they are not two words. They are one word. It's quantum AI. This is something I'm going to be speaking a little bit about it. And one thing I promise you, today I promised myself as well. That's why I was shuffling my slides even last night. The one they have over there were not the one I'm presenting, so I had to give them the new version. I promise you, my talk would be the least technical today, probably across the entire conference. So I want to start with the application side of the quantum computing. Thinking about human brains, we have left side, we have right side. And for the right side, it's more logical, more sequential. And those are high levels of scientific and technology activities occurs. And I think lots of talks here in this conference is within that part of our brain. But don't forget, we also have the right side. Right side is more creative, more innovative, more non-traditional. And I think that's usually not a physicist like me or you are doing every single day. But that's really bringing the humanity side out in our society, right? Don't forget, that's also a very important part of our quantum journey. So as Jeff introduced, I was the Senior Vice President and the Chief Information Officer in New York City, in a university over there. And as we started educating our students to work on quantum, one of the part we started was on the right side of our brand. So let me showcase some of the work they did over there, and then we'll transition to the left side of the brand. So our student applied quantum computing to do fashion design. They created artifacts. This is not a picture. This is actually the Christmas time when we did the quantum, the first quantum design art exhibition in a gallery in New York City, Manhattan. This is actually the physical installation. Beautiful, beautiful art created by quantum computing. And our student applied quantum computing to compose music. We were in South by Southwest, I think 3 or 4 years ago, and that music was played as a background of our session. Our student also applied quantum computing for games. Many of us played Tetris. If you're at my age, you know what Tetris is. So our student created it. This is still online. You can still play it. There is a website you can go. You can play Quantum Tetris. And our student also used quantum computing for poetry, going both ways, from poetry to quantum circuits, and also from quantum circuits to poetry. It's a round trip. And our student, this is my favorite. Guess what they're doing? It's a brownie. Why brownie? Because our students actually applied quantum computing to research recipes. And they applied quantum computing to create some unusual combinations of the spices and flavors and whatever. And they created the quantum recipe. Actually, this is the winning project we did in Manhattan, right? So you can see, I can show you endlessly. If you just Google New School Quantum Lab, you will see a bunch of work they did over there. We have physical installations. So that's the right side of it, right? I think this will become bigger and bigger, even in the state of Texas, because that's what people gravitate, that's people relates to. So now let me switch back to the left side of our brand. This is a part of our, we call the Olympic team in the first Texas Quantum Summit. These are the folks, you probably see them at the tables. If you see them, shake hands with them. This is only a small set of it. We have many people, even myself, were not in the picture. Here's where we are. We talk about the left side of our brand. So, and also a big part of the work as the researchers do is that we apply quantum computing to quantum materials. We actually probe quantum materials, and we study the quantum entanglement, hopefully making the quantum computer better. And we also study, we also apply quantum computing to the formulation of electron-nuclear dynamic method. And we also try to come up with a method to accelerate the convergence of the computation, and also as a big part of what we do, because we are all universities, right? When we admit the students in year 1, we know they're going to graduate in 4 years. At least 70, 80% of them will graduate in 4 years. So our obligation is our promise. How can we give them the marketable skills so that when they graduate, not only they find a job, they get a good paying job that they will enjoy. They can raise a family and contribute to the local community, right? So that's our obligation as the educators. So we also started a very large quantum education effort across multiple departments and colleges. So I'm going to showcase some of the projects which our student actually did. So first of all, our student applied quantum computing to solve the intractable problems, like logistics problems that we're dealing with. We all heard about traveling salesman's problem. That's one of them. Our student also applied quantum computing to study molecules, protein folding, stuff like those. And our student also get into the physics or the engineering side of quantum computing. For example, they are studying the different quantum computing technologies, annealing versus superconducting, etc. And our student also applied quantum computing to study breast cancer, try to have early detection to save lives. I just learned this from my student, actually. It was very surprising. I learned that if you do a scan of the eyes, they call retinopathy, and somehow that scan can reveal whether the people has diabetes or not. So if somebody could comment more on that, please, but it's surprising to me. Somehow our eyes, shows some signs of that. So our student latch onto those data and help to come up with method to detect diabetes. And also we know the stroke is a big problem. So our student also looking at the patient records and looking at the data to predict whether certain population has a higher risk of developing stroke or not, right? It's prevention versus reaction. So I'm going to showcase one project because I don't have enough time to showcase all 6 or 7. There are more projects. I can only fit so much. So let me talk about one. The one I want to showcase today is the breast cancer. This come from 2 of our wonderful students. They identified this as a big problem, not only for the state of Texas, but for the nation and also for the world as well. The economic impact is huge. The impact not only measured in dollars, but also in family. When somebody lost a family member, we all know how sad that is. It's not cannot be even measured by money, right? So what they did was that they looked at the current clinical practice for early detection of breast cancers. There are 2 traditional methods. One is X-ray based, which is mammography. And you can only do so often because otherwise X-ray is also a cause of cancer. The second method is ultrasound. Ultrasound is not radiation based, so potentially you can do this more often. But the resolution of the ultrasound is lower than X-ray, as you all know. So there's a compromise. Either you do one way, or you get a better resolution. So for ultrasound, when doctors read the studies, the accuracy of the diagnosis is roughly about 80%. What does that mean? That means 20% of the patient potentially would be at higher risk of developing into the next stage, right? The life could have been saved, we could have missed. So this is one picture of the ultrasound. I have no clue. If some of you in the audience can tell whether there is a breast cancer or not, I can't. Second one, right? I know there's a hole over there. I don't know what that is, right? So I couldn't tell. Humans couldn't tell. I mean, at least I couldn't tell. There's another one. No clue, right? So they downloaded those images from breast cancer database. And when they downloaded the images, they come down with 3 classifications. We call, from AI point of view, we call that supervised learning. They are pre-labeled data. So each of them are labeled with either the benign, they are malignant, or they are normal. And they downloaded over 1,500 images across all three classes. And you can see this is the typical how the doctors classify those images. And then once they download the data, they obviously have to normalize the data. They extract the features. Features could be the brightness of the pixels, how many pixels cluster together. And just like human beings, computers can only handle so many features. You quickly get into thousands, hundreds of features. What do? You do the principal component analysis. You kind of reduce the features to a smaller set you can handle. That's what we do many, many, many years in the deep neural network, right? In the AI space, some of you do that. We do that for a living. And then they had to scale all the data so that they can fit in the quantum circuits. And the student actually spin up a quantum deep neural network. Some of you done the traditional AI, the CMOS-based computation. We know the quantum deep neural network is very different. So first of all, what they have done is they had to spin up a set of qubits. I only give a small section of the circuits. They actually spin up 16 qubits circuit. So they only show the 4 of them. So 0, 1, 3, 4, those are the qubits. And then right after that, we have to load the images into the quantum circuits. As you know, each of the pixel could have a brightness of from 0 to 255. So they have somehow to convert that value into the quantum circuit. What they did was so-called angle encoding. So if the brightness is like 180, they would simply rotate the qubits 180 degrees, right? That's what we call the angle encoding. So they encoded those data onto the circuits. And then the next section is actually the deep neural network. It's a simple one. I mean, I would say three. How many layers you want to call this? Depends on 3 layers. This is the brain behind the classification. So they had to tune that part of the circuits so that the output, this is the output part. So the output actually matches as much as we can to those 3 classes. And if you put them together, this is the complete circuit from qubits to data encoding to deep neural network, quantum way, and also the output. The results has been really good. I was surprised, to be honest. Usually when I used to be with another deep blue company, when we try those deep neural networks, first of all, it takes forever. And sometimes you have to do lots of adjustment to get the better results. I want you to focus on the green line right over there. You can see the training probably had a good guess at the beginning. But you can see the training results. It's actually pretty good. The accuracy is about 95%. Remember, the doctor's classification is 80%. What does that mean? 15% of the patients could be diagnosed. So what is the future work? As many of you know, in Texas Tech, we also have a medical school, health science center. So we have already started the conversation with oncologists. We are establishing, very fortunate from the state, we receive investment. We're establishing 2 cancer centers within our system. One is next to Texas Tech. So we already have a conversation with oncologists, with researchers. We are looking at how can we actually, how should I say, doing the testing and potentially could commercialize this as a model. We hear from the state, from the representative, from the senator, right? What is the real impact to the state of Texas and to our community? This is potentially becomes our student contribution even before they graduates. As you can see, I'm taking a very small peek into the work happening in Texas Tech. And, but the results has been excellent. And we are making a very big, small step. But from here, it is possible. So I'm going to stop over here and thank you for coming.
Thank you, Dr. Lin. Do we have any questions for our speaker? No questions?
Philip.
Go to the microphone. Thanks for sharing this example. I think it's as much a left brain than it is a right brain example because of the implications for people's health and how the impact on families. It seems amazing if we can increase from 80 to 95% the ability to detect early cancer. Is this model scalable? Any kind of challenges that you see? Because something like this is transformative. Obviously, more than happy to figure out how do we help you move it forward. But yeah, I would love to hear a little bit from you. What does it take to make it scalable?
Yeah, Philip, thank you for that question. I will relate back to your good question to the earlier days of the computational age. I remember when I was a PhD student in the university, we are writing kind of code, right? Fortran, at that time, I was doing Fortran, right? So at that time, the Fortran, the program was good enough. But when we try to go through the computational stage, try to do the simulations, you submit a job, you wait for 2 days. They come back, something happened. You adjust, you do another, right? Somebody smiles, you know what happens, right? So I think for quantum computing, it's the same thing. We are at the same stage where the computation still is the gate, right? We know how far we can travel, given the limitation of the decoherence time. how deep a circuit we can execute, right? I think we are still at that stage. That's why the student, they couldn't spin up the more sophisticated, because if the circuit is too deep, then you get into that limitation. But also how wide, we also talk about how wide, how many qubits you have. I think those are the things we would love to have collaborations with the industry, right? With the wonderful providers, companies presented in this conference. But also I think that from the state point of view, we also need support from the state and try to really drum up that investment into the state of Texas, establish that infrastructure, not just for research, but also for teaching and learning as well. I think until we overcome the hardware limitation, there is going to be a bottleneck on how many applications we can develop. Right. But this is fantastic because these are relatively simple circuits. We can do it with the limitation we have, and the results was good. So that's why we are very excited. We say, let's go 100 miles an hour. Let's get it done. Right.
I too was intrigued by the example of the breast cancer analysis. So I understand this was done with 16 qubits, which is not very much, and I presume you did this with a simulator rather than with a real device. That's something that could easily be implemented on a classical device. And so that begs the question of whether there might be quantum-inspired algorithms that might result from these sorts of investigations that might lead you to even better results. Have you guys thought about that?
Yeah. So our student used, you're right, used both simulators as well as a real backend. Because some of the backend today offers number of qubits far more than 16 qubits, so they do. But just like Phil's good question is, what is the limitation, right? Sometimes when you submit a job into the real backend, you know what happened. You wait, right? Because there are 100 jobs ahead of you, right? You have to wait until those things finishes. So I think those, but from simulator point of view, there's the advantage, as you probably you alluded to. You can control the noise. You can control the noise, and you have control over the workload yourself. I think for the next year or maybe a couple of years, we're going to live in the hybrid space between the simulators. Some simulators actually pretty good, simulators and a real backend. And I think that would coexist for some time before the quantum, actually, the real backend, start taking more workload.
Thank you.
Thank you.